Okay. All right, let's go ahead, bring the meeting of Templeton Community Services District Board of Directors to order. Today is August 6th, and it's 7 p.m. Director Peterson, do you mind turning your video on, please?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, all right, roll call, but before we do that, General Manager, you want to make an announcement?
I just want to relay to the folks in attendance that Vice President Peterson's participating via Zoom tonight. This is permissible under the Brown Act because he has a contagious or may have a contagious illness. So it's permissible under those circumstances. Wayne, can you let us know if there's any adults in the room with you? That's something that has to be disclosed under this provision of the act.
No, there's not.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Roll call, please.
Director English is absent. Bardanish,
Here.
Logan,
Here.
Mortensen,
Here.
and Peterson.
Here.
Great. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Okay, order of business. Do any of the board members would like to change the order of the business? No. Okay. I don't think so. Nope. Okay. Special reports. We have two special reports. Let's go ahead. I guess Sheriff's Department. He's eager to go. Commander Manueli from Sheriff's Department, please. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Michael Manueli, Commander, Sheriff's North Station. And yes, I do have some statistics for you from July 2024. The station received 1,988 calls for service compared to last year, 2,205. That's a 10% drop. Templeton had 330 calls for service compared to last year, 470. That's a significant drop of about 30%. For reference, San Miguel had 216 last year, 217, basically no change. From those calls for service, we had 263 reports for the station compared to last year, 337, a drop of 22%. Templeton had 54 reports compared to last year. We had 86, a significant change, a drop of 37%. And again, for reference, San Miguel had 29 reports. Breaking those calls for service down into specific areas, assault and battery, we saw 2 calls for service, both generated a report. One, the caller reported a subject spit in her face, and then the other call, a parent called for the victim and reported someone pulled a knife on that person. The victim did not want prosecution in that particular case. There were 14 disturbance calls, 3 reports were generated. We received a report of a disturbance at a location when an ex-wife showed up at the location. Next call was we were called to the location for a dispute over a dog. This was a family disturbance dispute. Who gets to keep the dog? Separation. And we also had a call for service for a non-physical domestic dispute. There were no burglaries. Good news. Only 1 theft. Equipment from a job site was reported stolen. Vandalism, 2 calls for service. 1 of those generated a report. The victim reported 2 vehicles and spray paint vandalism to the house. That was rather significant. 5 trespassing, no reports, 0 scams, and 8 suspicious circumstance calls, generating 1 report. A caller reported a subject possibly under the influence staggering down the street. Deputies arrived on scene, located said subject, and found he had arrest warrants and took him into custody. Additionally, there were 8 firework related calls for service. None of those resulted in enforcement action. That is my report for today.
Thank you, Commander. Any questions from the board?
Well, I do have a question about an incident that occurred over at Los Tablas exit today. There was a man on the ground and there was paramedics there.
I did hear that call. Let me see if I can remember the circumstances.
He appeared lone, and I don't know if it was a heat-related incident or not.
I do remember the circumstances. Yes, it was not a medical and it was not criminal.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments from public, questions from public? No, okay, well,
And I
thank
think-
you.
I think CHP gets some of the credit in that they located that subject for us.
But clearly it wasn't traffic.
It was not.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Commander Stewart from the CHP department. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you. Wondering why I'm not in uniform? My uniform will probably be at the dry cleaners for a while, now that I'm done with the state fair. You wouldn't wanna see them. The sweat rings. So this is Chandler Stewart, Commander of the Templeton CHP office, and this is our report for the months of June and July of 2024 with some comparisons to 2023 period. For the Templeton area, there were 47 collisions investigated, 24 of those on the freeway, and 23 on the highway. That's up 10 from the prior year, same period. Of those, 28 involved property damage only, 12 on the freeway, 60 on other county roads, and that's up slightly also over the same period last year. 19 involved injury, the bulk of those on the freeway, 7 involved DUI drivers. 2 of those up on the freeway, 5 on other county roads. There were no fatal collisions in the Templeton area, either this period or this time last year, we're pleased to report. Sadly, there have been fatal collisions out on the 46, you're probably aware of those, one involving illegal passing. And the most recent where there were 3 persons who lost their lives in that crash involved DUI drivers, not only in the case of the primary person responsible, but the other vehicle that was struck was also being driven by an impaired driver, it appears, based on our investigation. So please do not drive impaired or distracted for that matter, and hold your friends and loved ones accountable. For the period, there were 290 enforcement contacts that's in and around the Templeton area, 250 of those on the freeway, 40 on other county roads. That's up 24% from the same period of the prior year. And there were 165 citations issued, the bulk of those again up on the freeway. That's up 27% from the prior year. I do note that enforcement counts throughout our jurisdiction are off slightly in some categories. That doesn't seem to affect the Templeton area. The main reason is that the freeway up above you is heavily patrolled, regardless of our staffing. So you won't see that trend in this area. 26 citations were issued for speed in excess of the posted speed limit, 24 of those on the freeway, 2 on other county roads. And there were no citations for 100-mile-an-hour plus speed. And that's off only 1 from last year. There was 1 for the same period on this section of the 101 last year. The bulk of those happened up on the north end of the 101. There were 8 citations issued for seatbelts and 15 arrests of DUI drivers for the period in and around the Templeton area. There were 48 DUI arrests throughout our jurisdiction for the period. And for your info, we provided 441 service to motorists for the period. And that's our report.
Great, thank you. Commander.
Thank you.
Any questions for Commander Stewart? No? Okay, and public questions? No? Okay, well, thank you for coming. Thanks for keeping us safe. Okay, this section is the public comment. Members of public may address the board on any items of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not on the agenda today. In compliance with the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss or act on the items not on the agenda. Are there any questions or comments, public comment today? No, okay, all right. we'll go ahead to the consent agenda. We have several items on there. The first item, are the minutes from July 16th, 2024. The second item is the memorandum of understanding MOU with Templeton Unified School District. The third item is resolution number 16-2024, which is revisions to the strategic financial policies. The fourth item is resolution number 17-2024, which is workplace violence prevention program. And the last item on the consent agenda is the budget amendment, is soccer goals. I'd like to pull the item E, 7E budget amendment, soccer goals. Do we need to pull item C, resolution for revision to strategic financial?
I just have a quick question on item C. This was discussed at the wastewater committee meeting, utility meeting. This did not come up at the finance and admin. Is there a reason why it was done in that committee as opposed to the finance and admin?
Primarily just timeliness of the finance and admin, I'm sorry, the water wastewater committee was already scheduled.
Okay,
And the concerns that were raised, or the issues that came up, primarily dealt with procuring professional services as it relates to water and wastewater projects.
but if you look at the procurement and the
Yes.
policy, it applies to the fire
It
department.
applies to it applies universally
Yeah, yeah.
to all departments, but the pressing matters.
Timing issue because of the other items that are on tonight's agenda?
Not necessarily these items, but in general, items that we're working on, master plans and design for well work and those kinds of things that are current.
Okay,
But there's no reason that it couldn't have gone to admin and finance, maybe it should have, but that would have delayed it being able to come before the board.
understood. Okay,
Dr. Moore?
I just didn't know if there was a reason to expedite it by using that other committee that was scheduled.
Okay, so that answers your.
Yeah, that answers my question.
Did you need to pull the items for any questions?
No, I do
You're
not.
okay now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, then, if so, we'll just pull item 7E, and then if I could, I'll entertain a motion for the other items, please.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve items, consent agenda items A, the minutes of the July 16th, 2024 meeting. Item B, the memorandum of understanding with the Templeton Unified School District. Item C, resolution number 16-2024, revisions to the strategic financial policy. And item D, resolution number 17-2024, workplace violence prevention program.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
English is absent, Peterson,
Aye.
and Bardonish.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0 with one absent. So on the item 7E, you want, actually, I have a
Yes.
comment to
Oh,
make. but
okay.
go ahead.
I wanna clarify or make a minor change to the recommendation. It's not a material request to change things, but the line item that's listed in the staff report should be amended. Instead of the last 5 digits being 61100, it should be 63000. And if that occurs, then and it's approved, these additional funds would land in the soccer equipment program expense line item, and that therefore will be tracked under soccer expenses. As
Is this
opposed to-
particular jail code, is it supplies in general?
But for this code now, it falls under program expenses for soccer.
What you're proposing?
Yes.
But the one that's in the.
Oh, you know what, I'm sorry,
recommendation-
I just, I didn't go back and double check that. We just had
Okay.
staff crossing paths.
Okay.
Some,
So-
Mel was here a couple weeks ago and Natalie wasn't, and Natalie reviewed this and said she's returned and made this request, and Mel's not here.
So I'm sorry, so you said that, what's the new number?
It should be 30-6010-63000. Program expenses.
6300.
That's specific to
Soccer.
equipment.
Yes.
Okay, makes sense.
Alright. Okay, I have a question, comment, I guess, more or less. I understand the need for the soccer goals. I realize that we run programs and we need that. The concern I have is that when I read the report, it says that we have known about this since when the season ended last year. So, I just had hoped or wished that maybe this had been brought up either at the Parks and Rec committee meetings or at the Finance Committee meeting, so we could put it in the budget. I think there would have been a better discussion during that. I mean, I just feel like we're kind of in a hurry to say, to approve it, which we need to, so I understand that part, but I think it would have been a great opportunity to have discussions maybe with TRF to see if they would like, because they're looking for projects, for things that they could say that they're fundraising for. And I think this would have been a great item to have. So at least going forward in the future, maybe we could keep that in mind, talking with TRF and also maybe even having a list of items and things that we want,
Well, at our
TRF.
budget meeting, we had asked Mel to create a list of projects.
Mhm.
I mean, cause I agree with what you're saying, this should have been in the budget.
It was just
and it
simply a
got missed.
staff oversight.
Yeah, and I get that, but what we did ask is because if you recall, we had a discussion about, we had $40,000 in revenue coming in from TRF. And we were led to believe that that wasn't a guarantee, and we reduced that amount to $10,000. But by the same token, what we asked was Mel to create a list of projects so that it could be turned over to TRF to say, here are some projects for Park and Rec that if you wish to make a donation, here is our priority and ranked them. So I agree with you on that. So I don't know if that list has been done.
It has not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not been done in a formal way yet. But I think it's a very valid point. We'll get to work on a sort of a wish list of items. This, unfortunately, timing wise,
Yeah,
if this isn't approved, we'll figure it out, but we've got a couple of broken goals that just, are really not serviceable at this point. This would replace those.
and I'm not opposed to this. I don't think it should come in this way. I get it that it was probably an oversight not being included in the budget, but I think it goes back to that list that we requested. And making sure that we have that, front and center.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit more communication between us, TRF, the park department. Because ultimately, this money is coming from the property taxes, and we just gotta be really careful with how this money is being spent, so. If there are other opportunities, and we always look for opportunities in terms of grant fundraisers and things like that, so if there are opportunities like that out there, we just wanna make sure that we look at all possible solutions, so that was my big thing. I just, for next time, let's, because so that way we, otherwise then are all the discussions that we have for all those workshops with the budget and things like that, then it's kind of becomes.
What would have
meaningless
been nice if in advance we had the time to go to TRF and say,
Yeah.
hey, we need this.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the list would be helpful
Yeah.
in that regard.
Any other comments or questions on this item?
Is there any specifications for the length of time that those goals, are actually?
They'd be purchased immediately, so
I'm saying length of time for their use and utilization. So in the report, it was saying by 2004, the goals that were purchased back then last until this period of time. Are we looking for the same time frame?
Yeah. I mean, you could buy equipment that is, more robust. And typically the districts purchased the larger goals or the larger fields or these kind of like 20-year life. And sometimes the lighter weight stuff for smaller fields has been purchased because it's easier to move around, and it's also less expensive. And we should expect a long life out of quality equipment. They're not very complicated, right? Not a lot of moving parts.
goals.
Actually, does this just go into for asset
Yes.
replacement category operation? You don't have to worry about it.
It's gotta be, it would have, each piece would have to be over $5,000
Each piece,
to
okay.
be tracked like that. It's just a supply.
Okay, all right. Director Peterson, do you have any questions or comments? No? Okay, all right, great. Since there, for public, is there any questions or comments from public? No. Thank you. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'm gonna bring it back to board and I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment for soccer goals in the amount of $7,800. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call, please.
DirectorsArdonish,
Yes, aye.
Logan,
Aye.
English is absent, Mortensen,
Aye.
and Peterson.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes 4-0 with one absent. Okay, moving on to the business items. Our first item of business is the budget amendment for Platts Deep Well Rehabilitation.
This is Lori Azim's item.
Lori,
Because
okay.
She's been out for a couple of days, so I haven't, maybe we didn't communicate well on what to expect here. But she can present the item and we, in between Lori and myself and Justin Black can answer.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Lori Ziem. I haven't met you yet,
Want to go to the podium?
If you don't mind, please, thank you.
sorry, my first,
This is how you, I think you should appear on camera.
Yes.
okay, hello. My name is Lori Ziem. I'm the district engineer here at Templeton Community Services District. And the first week of June, we had a bit of a mishap with one of our wells, which we call the Platts Deep Well, which is located on the Platts property that's accessed off Calle Propana. And what occurred is that we started up the well for the summer as it's part of our summer production for water. And about 3 days into it, we started experiencing some turbidity in the water, which over a day or so, we realized is sand. So there was a sand component coming out of the well, and it ended up being pumped to some of the northern regions of the district. And so at first, our utilities guys thought that it might have been some issues in the distribution lines. And so they looked at and they pumped and cleared some portions of lines where people were calling from, and that didn't improve the situation. And so over about a 24-hour, 36-hour period, we came to realize it was the well. And so we shut the well down and proceeded through trying to diagnose what was happening with the well. And so over a period of a few weeks, we worked with GSI, our hydrogeologists, to do some testing, and the well continues to produce the sand over a periods of time where we ran it at different levels. And so what we then chose to do is remove the pump and do what's called a video test of the well itself by sending a camera down and analyzing what was happening actually in the well shaft. And it came to the actual well itself is looking fine. But what our hydrogeologist is recommending that we do what she calls a rehabilitation with basically like they call it swabbing, where they take some basically two, what would you call it, phalanges or something.
Yeah, plunger type.
Yes,
Flanges type.
and then you send them down the well and you basically vigorously shake it so that you shake the gravel around the well to settle it, so that this sand will not come out any longer when it's pumped. So this is something that is suggested to rehabilitate the well and is our best understanding or effort to try to save this well. And so we went through another process of talking with her about what kind of effort this would be with a drilling company that would have these kind of tools, and she came to us with what's called a work plan for all the steps that would need to happen to rehabilitate the well. And so the number that we have before you includes kind of a two-phase approach. The first phase would be that rehabilitation with the swabbing effort and some removal of sand within the well shaft that was found with the video. And then there would be kind of a pause and an analysis of if it looks like it has been, successful in that step. And then after that, we would actually have to move forward in replacing the pump and what's called the well casing, which is a pipe that comes along the well shaft. So there's kind of a 2-phase effort, and each phase is about 1,500. The second phase is possibly a little bit more than that because the well casing treatment that we're looking into. So the total effort with those 2 phases would be $307,000. With the first phase being just under 144,000, the second phase 163,000.
Great, well, thank you. Awesome first report. Any questions?
Yes, so the rehabilitation of the well, your approach, what percentage of guarantee do you have that it will be successful?
That's actually a question, and a question we asked multiple times. We were told that it's about a 70% chance that it will be successful. But we've also heard from the driller that assisted us that he believes the well's in really good shape. And so, the well itself seems to be, in good shape, but it's the sand production that is the question.
So there's this interesting theory that's not visible in the video, that part of the gravel pack, there's outside of the perforations that allow water in, there's gravel between there and where the hole itself is. That somehow maybe a section of the gravel pack has shifted, it's not visible in the video, we wouldn't be able to see it because it's behind this casing, and that this process can take all that gravel. There's like 100 feet of gravel above where we draw water from, so there's room for more gravel to fall. And if we can get that to occur, it can be like the wells being put into production for the first time.
So what's the plan if that doesn't work? Is there a contingency plan?
There is. So first, if it doesn't work and there's evidence that it's not gonna work, we won't proceed with suspending the rest of the funds to replace we'll save about half of this money at least, probably more. And then the well would likely need to be replaced. So we're talking about obtaining another easement and re-drilling the well. And right now we're looking at, okay, we're not gonna have we don't expect to have the well online to be helpful for us this summer, because we have this sort of peak production from June to September, and then our production goes way down. Probably not gonna have the well back online by the end of September. However, if it fails, it would be a real struggle to get it, if it's successful, we're back in business and ready to go for next year. If it fails, then we're really dealing with some hardships next summer, because we're starting from scratch, essentially. We don't own this property. We can't just go out there and dig another hole. So it's the cost wise, it's not, so it's not like it's not an issue of can the district afford it to replace the well? It's more the inconvenience, and there's, quite frankly, drilling a new well comes with its own set of risks. You could drill a well 50 feet away and it not work out the way this well does. So I think we're trying to take advantage of the investment that we already have. We've had this high production well since 2009, so 15 years or so. It's and all the evidence points to the well itself being in sound shape. So
Yeah, I think the 70% was a very conservative guess, so I think it's looking more positive.
And you'll continue to monitor after you do the phase 2 to make sure that the water does not have any more sand and that we're giving to the
Exactly.
public.
Yes. And we also have the additional Platts River well that we're moving forward and working on, and there'll be some interaction between the two wells. So we'll be able to see any issues with that as well.
I just know we have such a reliance on this well for the summer months, and I appreciate the fact that the district did send out a notice with the last water bill about water conservation. So I think that was a little proactive, to do that.
It's Lori's suggestion.
It was the right thing.
So, we'll keep you posted. If this is approved and we move forward, we may know, within a month how effective the treatment, the well rehab has gone, and we'll keep you posted. And if at any time there's some messaging or information that leads us to believe we shouldn't proceed, we'll regroup. But that is in order to preserve the asset, this is necessary. We really cannot put this well back in production the way it is now.
Yeah.
Your residents would not be happy.
Is there any other questions?
No, that's all I
I
had.
did for, sorry, when it says the pump was actually damaged, was that internal damage to all the internal components? It says like that it's not
Yes,
financially sound to basically
Yes.
repair it.
exactly. It wasn't feasible, because they'd have to take the whole pump apart and take it to somebody to recoat every part.
Okay,
So time and just the whole effort, it's just as much as getting it, buying a
Okay.
new pump.
no, makes sense.
And why are we using Miller drilling? Is that?
We use Miller drilling, as a emergency response to try to, help us with these tests. So we just hired them, for like under a maintenance and repair contract. And they ended up pulling, the well to help with the video testing, but they aren't the ones that necessarily will be going.
Oh, they're not.
No, so we will actually be going out for multiple
Okay,
bids
you are. Okay.
for the rehab effort and then also for the second phase for ordering.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the estimate that we have, then it could change? Because
Exactly.
it says Miller in the. in
Yeah, so
parentheses.
we got an estimate for Miller just to get a ballpark
I see.
number so that we could give you guys an idea of what it's gonna cost, because at this point, we didn't know exactly. And we told them to be conservative, that everything would have to be replaced.
Okay,
But there might be, with the well casing, for example, there might be ability to salvage a portion of it
oh, okay,
and just add sections, but
alright,
that's to be determined.
okay, so it's gonna go out to. Okay,
Yeah, so that was just for an estimate that we,
Thank you.
And I believe we actually got multiple quotes on pulling the pump and doing the video as well. Even though it was done in an urgent manner, I recall. So,
Director Peterson, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
No, okay, just gonna go to public. Does public have any questions or comments on this item? No? Okay, we'll come back to the board. Any additional comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion then.
No comment.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Directors, approve the budget amendment in the amount of $307,000 for the rehabilitation of the Pike 4 deep well.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
English is absent, Peterson,
Yes.
and Bardonish.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 4-0 with one absent. Okay, next item is the budget amendment for the Nasi Recharge Recovery Project. Is that you?
well, Lori can take the lead on this one here since she's here, but again, myself.
Your night.
Jessica, Lori.
All right.
I don't have the numbers written.
Oh, okay, well, we will, we'll wing it. So this is a very important project, as you know, we've been working for a long time to add a Nazi Meadow turnout and bring our Nazi Meadow water allocation to the Creekside property for a project that we call the Nazi Recharge and Recovery Project. And began working on this actually back in 2021. We had some very rough conceptual designs and estimates. And we began working on trying to obtain an easement because the Nazi Meadow Water Project line is at that location is on the east side of the river, and our property is on the west side of the river. Then in January of 2023, we had a big storm, and as I'm sure you remember, and one of the things we learned about, not that day, but subsequently, that the existing turnout that the district, that the flood control district has on our behalf, installed on our behalf. It's their project. They maintain it, but only for our benefit. The cover above that, the sandy soils where that's sort of in a floodplain area on the east side of the river, couple feet deep of sandy soils about the size of a football field, just real roughly, or maybe bigger than that, washed away that day. And, created some vulnerabilities or shown some vulnerabilities to the line. It was not, we did not lose service. However, the fiber optics line that's in the same, that's installed with the turnout is exposed. The top of the pipe was exposed in certain places. And so there were some real vulnerabilities there. Later in 2023, so now we're fast forward maybe to about September or August or September 2023, county staff, Flood County Flood Control District staff came to the district and said, you know, we're already working with FEMA on the big washout because the pipeline itself was washed out down to Garden Farms. You probably that did like 800 feet of the line was just gone during that same storm event. San Luis Obispo lost access to water, still doesn't have it. They were already working with FEMA on that, and everything was looking pretty positive to have FEMA cover the cost, cover most of the cost of designing a fix and actually fixing it. And so the county staff, and I'm giving you a very long version. This is the version I know by heart and not Lori's staff report. County staff says the first step in doing this would be to maybe do an alternatives analysis for what we should do for that project. And we sat down with them and said, well, you know, as you know, we're trying to relocate this thing anyway. And is there any chance that that might be an alternative that gets evaluated? And county said, well, maybe that's a good idea. Looking at these various maps, the existing turnouts in the floodplain, there's all these various hazards, that there are risks that are associated with the current project. And so we said, yes, let's do this alternatives analysis. And so the county hired a consulting engineer to perform that analysis, and that work was done between the fall and this spring. And the alternative, the summary of that alternatives analysis is actually attached, the executive summary is actually attached to your staff report. It analyzed 4 options, and the recommended preferred option was to relocate the turnout to our site and leave the existing turnout with some minimal protection as a redundancy, but not try to protect it to handle a massive storm event. Knowing that at that point it would have been relocated. So the county staff then consulted with FEMA, and FEMA gave a informal blessing or indications that this looks like a doable project, looks fundable under our program, but you know, we're like totally backed up, and FEMA is going to take a year to a year and a half to formally approve it. And it's now kind of partnered up with the larger portion of the project down at Garden Farms. Same system, same water system, not a water project. So the county staff had a great idea and came to us and said, hey, what do you think about moving forward with the design of this new turnout? And while that's happening, we can be awaiting FEMA's formal determination. And then once that is known, we can just proceed with the project instead of waiting for all this to come about. And that met our interest as well. We want to move forward with this project regardless of the FEMA reimbursement, although having FEMA involved, FEMA is no fun, but the money is great. So we would like to try to move forward. And so we, in further speaking with county staff, kind of reached an agreement that yes, we could come to you with a recommendation to proceed with the understanding that if anything goes sideways with FEMA, that the work done to date, or this project, the work that WSC is going to perform or likely to perform under the county's supervision would be shared or provided to the district in the event that FEMA turns the project down for whatever reason. So we wouldn't necessarily be out any time, and we'd still be making progress on the project, even while we're kind of waiting for a formal determination. So that's where we stand today. The changes to the issues really are a couple things. One, our kind of rough estimate from a few years ago, $425,000 was going to be to have the district hire an engineer to design the project. By the way, the turnout is a portion of the project, not the entire project. It's the bulk of it, but it's the expensive part. But the county effort would not include the retrieval wells, a blending system, chlorination tank, some filtration. So some other hardware will still need to be done. But once you get the county involved, you get all the county overhead. And so a couple $100,000 of this figure is really additional costs the county is gonna charge the project, which we have to fund. Now, good news, bad news here, there's a cash flow requirement. The county, if this proceeds, if we approve this tonight, the next step will be that the flood control district will ask the Nacimiento Commission to support this effort, knowing that we would cash flow it. And then it would go before the Board of Supervisors, I believe on September 24th, for a budget amendment. And then the county would move forward with initiating the work. If FEMA approves it, not only will they cover the cost of the installation, the big dollar, the roughly $3 million worth of work, they'll cover this design work or most of it. There are some ineligible costs in the county overhead that wouldn't necessarily be reimbursed by FEMA, so we'd be on the hook for those. But nearly 93% of this cost would come back if FEMA approves the project. And I guess all indications from county staff are they feel really confident that that's going to happen, but there are no guarantees. And we're not likely to get one anytime soon from FEMA. So dollars and cents wise, we had already allocated $425,000 in this year's budget. The request, the item before you tonight is sort of two steps all together, but two items. One is an additional budget amendment of $261,000. That takes us from 425 to 686. That is what the county's all-in costs are for the design work of the turnout. And I say it's a little more than the turnout. That would also be looking at some percolation issues related to a proposed perk pond at a site that they believe is more favorable to FEMA, or more desirable to FEMA up out of the floodplain. It also includes county overhead. That also includes the cost of the easement itself. So it's sort of an all-in price. And then the second decision would be to permit or authorize the use of this line item to essentially reimburse the county for these efforts as opposed to having the district go out and have the design done ourselves. So I should have re-reviewed the report that Lori primarily authored. But
I can
think
jump
that's
in as
law.
well and just, mention that TCSC will be involved in the process. When the engineers are coming back with each step, the 30%, 60%, 95% will be also reviewing and giving our comments and our, suggestions to them. So that, our voices are heard in the process. And we have had, some early efforts, that Tina has probably briefed, Tina Meyer, my predecessor, probably briefed you guys on. So we're providing them some information from those efforts to hopefully aid in the process of getting this project moving. So, we will be involved, but it's sort of a blessing to have somebody else project manage it and the potential for that 93% reimbursement from FEMA for this portion to the turnout location. And then we would continue on kind of concurrently with the rest of the project. That would be the district, our responsibility. The wells and the things that he was mentioning earlier.
Well, thank you. I do have a couple of questions that we
Go
could go around. So this amount, I guess the total 686,000. So there's a good chance that 93% of it's going to be returned.
Yeah, just less than 93 actually, because
Okay.
there's some small components in the county's structure that are not reimbursable under the FEMA formula. So, but let's say roughly 90%, just a big picture.
All right, and then you explain the additional cost of the two, why we need the 261. So let me just to clarify this for public as well. So this amount, 3,738,000, that's on here, the approximate total project cost. that's what would have cost us if FEMA hadn't stepped in, if we wanted to do this project?
Well, using the county's estimate, this
Yeah.
includes, so we wouldn't have captured all these expenses because the county is including county staff time in
Okay.
administering the project, and we don't bill district staff time to a capital project.
Okay,
But yes, the hard dollar costs would have likely been similar.
oh wow, that's quite a bit,
It's
so
a-
like it cut our costs
Well,
in half almost, right?
way more than half, you know, like maybe 75% or something.
Wow,
Yeah, because this is the expensive part of the whole project,
Yeah.
right?
okay,
Because we're talking about taking a pipeline, constructing a new access point to the existing Naciona pipeline on the east side of the river.
Mhm.
And then using a underground installation technique to bore or horizontally drill under the river, like 25 or 30 feet down, all the way across the river. And the project is different now. Our preliminary design would have just crossed the river and then come up inside the floodplain.
Yeah.
And what we, after really reviewing what happened in January 2023, is that we really want to make this more robust. We
Yeah.
can't afford to take the same risks that exist today. And so the project would bring the pipeline, this design conceptually, would bring the pipeline all the way out of the floodplain. So another maybe 200, 300 feet further to the west before it surfaces, or is a trench installed pipeline. And I mean, I may be wrong about that distance, but it's a pretty good distance inside the floodplain, maybe 300 feet or something. So it's a more robust design than we were working with. It should be able to handle the types of events that we saw in January 2023 better than what we were speaking of a few years back.
and then, so I know when previous discussions that we had, there were few options we had as far as how the pipe is gonna come through to our property. Has that decision been made yet? And if yes, then how is it coming through?
So
Or is it
it's
coming
been
through?
made conceptually because it's contained in the alternatives analysis, which is very similar to what we were seeking. Because that's what we told them to analyze. However, that is, they have the county under this, if this proceeds, the county will lead the design effort and they will actually lead the acquisition easement effort.
Okay,
It'll be
so-
up to them to acquire the easement. And so there would have to be negotiations between the county
Okay.
and the property owners. You know, we had multiple alternatives. In our view, we were tackling this project in a little different order, but the county has a certain way they're gonna go about it. And they said this is the formula they follow. Design, then easement acquisition, then moving forward.
So are we still gonna have to deal with the sand mining company?
Somebody will.
Oh, So they. so
Probably the
we're-
county, under this, if this stays a FEMA funded project, because the county is the contact for FEMA.
Uh-huh.
Then this would end up being a county easement, and actually the whole piece of infrastructure would be county owned on our property. There'd be a license or an easement that we would eventually give them. Because they would maintain it all the way up to the physical turnout, just like how it works today.
Okay, so that's what we're next, so if it does, something does go wrong with, with the sand mining, because of the sand mining operations or whatever, we're not responsible for it anymore. They'll.
The county will certainly work with them. We had already developed a rapport with the property owners that are at stake, and I certainly want to make sure this works out. And so, to the extent that it's necessary, we'll assist the county in getting those easements because it's in our interest. But yes, it would be the county would do that, and it's actually there's dollars in here for
Yeah.
the acquisition of those easements.
Right away, right?
Yes,
81,000.
that's what's listed there.
Yes, and 50,000 of that is
Theoretically.
expected for the easement cost itself, so the other 31 would be,
And just in case.
yeah. and
Or
county-
negotiating costs.
County efforts and potentially some surveying.
Oh, okay, okay.
So since the county is maintaining that relationship with FEMA, I'm assuming that the FEMA dollars will flow to the county and the county will then disperse the funds to us to reimburse our costs?
Yes, and this already happens with the Nacimiento project. I'll give you an example of something that's already occurred, not with FEMA, but for example, we've had some big problems with this pipeline over the years. Breaks in the river. And in those cases, what's occurred is the partners, participants, us being one, kind of a small one, have essentially paid for those repairs through our Nacimiento, billing. And then later, after the county received settlement with the original contractor who took some, accepted some responsibility financially anyway. The funds were sort of came back through that, so trued up, exactly, came right back in the same mechanism. We're already dealing with this with FEMA. The break on on that portion of the line down in near Garden Farms along the Salinas River will be cash flowed by all the participants. Now, the city of San Luis Obispo is gonna pay for the bulk of it, because they have the way the breakdown works, they pay the lion's share. But we will be paying for part of that as well through our Nacimiento participation agreements, and then any FEMA funds that come back will come back and sort this out. The problem is that the FEMA funds cannot be used to cash flow the project.
Okay, so is there an MOU, or is it the NACI project that is kind of overseeing the relationship
Yeah,
between TCSD and the county?
There's we all signed into a master agreement
Yeah.
for the Nacimiento project. So all of the participants and the flood control district
And
have
this
this.
project,
Well, for the entire Nacimiento project, there's a master
Yeah.
there's a master agreement that covers these items and how the billing is structured. And so essentially, once the project gets funding back from FEMA, whether it's on the line break or on this one, we'll get a credit and then extra cash backs. We won't be able to, that's too much credit. We wouldn't be able
do we
to
know
sell
what
that.
the FEMA timeline is?
We've been advised, as I recall, 1 to 1.5 years before we get a hard answer
About funding?
about whether the project's gonna be,
Yeah.
yes, gonna be funded.
Okay, is that from this point forward, or is it from when they first got involved?
No, I think that's from a recent point anyway, the last,
Yeah.
probably from June-ish, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
May or June is when.
Yeah.
Mid-June was when I first heard that timeline.
And I realize we're gonna probably have to incur this expense regardless of FEMA or not. It just would be nice to know, how long are we gonna float this money if FEMA does fund it?
Well, just keep in mind, the item before you right now is the 686 figure for, what you already have budgeted plus this additional amount, 686 total. We will come back if as we move forward, we're ready, and the county says we're ready to construct and we need to move forward. And now we're asking for a $3 million additional commitment. We will come back to you for that authorization. But if things move forward, if things go well, that should be wouldn't say the next step, but we should be there a year from now. Or however long, I actually don't remember how many days.
There was another thing that was mentioned, that FEMA also has a deadline of when we need to complete this project. So if we say we want it reimbursed and we start this process, then it would have to be completed by 2027 in order to get the reimbursement. So there's also this other timeline that we have to meet, that the county has mentioned, like we need to move to meet this other timeline for them to.
But the county would be really sourcing those vendors.
Yes.
So that's not something we have to worry about. I think they would have a little more leverage.
Well, it's still kind of that's still, that we're talking about just a couple of years, so we have to design it, and then it would go out to bid.
Yeah.
County would put it out to bid, so it's all good, and as Lori mentioned, one of the things that I can feel very confident in is we were not a party to the WSC Flood Control District Agreement that did this alternatives analysis. And most of the work predates Lori's arrival at the district, but Justin and I felt like a very active participant, that our voices were heard, our concerns were heard, and they were reflected in the recommendation.
Good.
So I feel confident that this will end up delivering a project that works for us.
Any-
Yeah, and you mentioned the year 2027 by this project's completion date. Are we looking at doing any remedial activity for the existing between the time this project gets off completion? Are we looking at backfilling or? That's it?
So for the existing turnout location, I don't know I think we've asked the county to fold a few dollars into the budget to cover those costs in construction. But it's really, it would be a fairly simple level of effort. I think it was something like
Yeah, the
25,000
last,
bucks.
the last Nacimiento, pipeline meeting, there was a utilities, one of their utilities guys, I call his name,
Chris Summers.
Chris Summers, who was saying that that it's actually been backfilled in some of the material that had been washed away in the past year. So it's actually looking better than it did in January 2023, just because of natural process. So we aren't as concerned about the pipeline itself washing away. Obviously, the fiber line itself, which is a county-owned line, correct?
It is.
They're concerned about that, but our pipeline itself, is less of a concern. I don't know, Justin's our utilities manager, Justin Black. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, and I haven't been to TSG meeting recently. I haven't been able to make it, but they did mention getting in and backfilling that area, providing some cover over the pipeline and the fiber optic, the fiber line. I haven't spoken to Chris Summers. I'll reach out to Chris Summers and see where they are with that. That was a couple months ago, and so it would be good to get an update for that, especially coming into the next, season. Weather season is gonna be it's gonna be upon us before we know it. So we'll reach out and we're in
Yeah.
constant contact with those folks on a monthly basis. We're attending the TSG, the Nacimiento pipeline, meeting, all the participants, and getting updated constantly about operations, maintenance, and projects that are going on along the pipeline. And so we'll get updated soon, and we'll let you know what's going on with it.
Yeah, it seems like county staff felt more comfortable with where it's at now in the last storm year than from January 2023. Is that there had been some settlement and movement within the river to actually fill in the spots that were concerned.
I just want to mention one of the things that you brought up, not really related to the existing turnout, but in addition to this moving forward and monitoring FEMA and pushing forward this design, there are a couple of things that we expect to get out of this design effort. One is some certainty or planning effort on where the percolation pond will go, whether it's in the originally planned area where we did a test or in an area that's outside the floodplain that might be more resilient. Once that's known, we're gonna need to come back to you with the other half of the project, such as the well, and for some design funds for the well, the installation, the design of the wells, the piping, the filtration, the blending system and a chlorination tank and those kinds of things. So there's a number of components that are not gonna be tackled by the WSC contract that we would need to have designed and then built. The idea is that those would be built and ready, so when this whole project comes online, we can begin utilizing the pipeline.
Director Peterson, do you have a question?
No, I'm in favor of this project, and I would like to thank Justin and Laurie and Jeff for all the hard work they've done. So, yeah, I am in favor of this, but I have no other questions.
You brought up year 2027, it needs to be completed, when in 2027? Is there a timeline for that? At the
I'll
beginning
have
of
to
the year?
I need to verify with the county staff, because I think it has to do with when they applied with
Yeah.
FEMA and that kind of lifespan that FEMA allows for you to
Okay.
complete the project, so.
And this will, by then we'll be able to capture the water from Nacimiento then?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the project delivered, and then we accept,
So, I mean,
at the turnout, so that would be their portion, right? So that.
is our portion gonna be done by then too? Can we like?
Ideally, yes, that's what he was
Yeah.
suggesting, we do a concurrent designs and have
So
everything
it's-
be constructed.
So there's a lot of room on the site. I think we can,
Yeah.
So we could start getting that water in 2027.
potentially,
So oh, yeah.
as early as 2027.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of on the same schedule that we were gonna
Yeah,
target,
that's
so.
what I was gonna say, that's what we were targeting all
And-
along, so we're not behind.
A lot of these FEMA issues come because of the approach that we're taking here, which is combining this hazard with the problem down in Garden Farms. And since that's already underway, the direction from FEMA is let's merge these together and deal with them as one major problem. Multiple sites, different contractors, different issues, but same circumstance, same January 23, January 9th, 2023. Boy, I should never forget that date.
Yes, yes.
But January 9th, 2023, date, that's when all this occurred, right? Same day. Yeah, I won't forget it. I'll try to do a better job remembering that date.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna go out to public, see if public has any comments on this project. No, everybody good? Great. We'll bring it back to board. Any more additional comments regarding this project? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Directors approve the budget amendment in the amount of $261,000 for the Nacimiento Water Recharge Recovery Project, currently budgeted at $425,000 for a total of $686,000, and to permit the use of the budgeted funds for the project to reimburse the SLO County Flood Control District for design of the new turnout portion and FEMA coordination.
Great. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Director Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
English is absent, Mortensen,
Aye.
and Fardanish.
Aye. Great. Motion passes 4-0 with one absent. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Very exciting. This is a big deal. So
Yeah, that's great.
next to the fire truck, this is.
Well, it's actually projects that we've talked about for some time, so we got the east side done, this was the next one.
Yes. Okay. So.
Yeah, and to have this, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And get this FEMA opportunity was something that we didn't, was too good not to try it and see if we could take advantage of.
And there has been significant effort by my predecessor, Tina Meyer, to give her credit towards moving this project forward. So we were able to hand a lot of that over to the county, and we'll be using it in our portion as well.
I mean, to be able to get all this water at substantial savings because we're getting a huge grant, so that's amazing. So this is gonna be very beneficial for Templeton years to come, so it's awesome. Great, okay, next item is appointment of board members to committees. So due to the fact that we had two board members resign, we now have that couple of openings, so I needed to go with general manager and we went over the openings and the areas where Director Mortensen and English could help us out. So we now they have been assigned to these new committees. So the administration and finance committee stays the same, which is Director Logan and I. The water and wastewater utilities, that is Director Mortensen and Peterson now. Fire and emergency stays the same, which is Director Peterson and I. Parks and recreation and refuse, that's going to be Director English and I on that committee. And then the external committees are, we have the Nacimiento, which is Director Peterson, and Director English is the alternate. The TAG, the Templeton Area Advisory Group, is Director Logan, with Director Mortensen being the alternate. The Water Resources Advisory is Director Logan, and with me being the alternate. And the GSA Executive Committee, it's me with Director Peterson being the alternate. I guess this is just informational, so there's no need for discussion. Okay. That's it. And well, thank you very much. So the next item is the general manager's report.
Yeah, just thank you much. Just a few additional items I wanted to call to your attention. First, that as you are likely aware, we're in the midst of the nomination period for the November election for all cities and cities and special districts and school districts. This board has 3 seats that will be voted upon for a 4-year term in November. Those seats are currently held by Naveed Fardanish, Deborah Logan, and Jeff English. 2 persons, as of the last time I checked, which was just a couple hours ago, are shown to be running for the 3 seats. So we will need or hope to get at least one additional person to run for one of these seats. In all likelihood, assuming that Jeff English does not submit nomination papers to run by this Friday, the nomination period will be extended until next Wednesday, close of business, so 5 p.m. on the 14th. If any of you know of anybody who might be interested, please encourage them to contact the county elections office and make an appointment. While there might be some possibility to show up at 4:45 next Wednesday, I know that's not the way they would prefer to handle it. So if someone would make an appointment, it would be a little smoother of a process. But the hard deadline will be 5 p.m. next Wednesday, the 14th, and we'll go from there. If there are 3 people who are on who run as of the close of the nomination period, those 3 people would be expected to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors in lieu of an election. If there are 4 or more people, this will be on the November ballot for Templeton residents to vote on. If there are less than 3 people, then the persons who run will be appointed in lieu of an election. And we will go through a process very similar to what we did in 2022, where we would be expected to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to consider making the appointment for the 3rd seat for the 4-year term. A couple of other things. I'm sorry, these are lengthy. Water unit issuance, still going through that somewhat lengthy process. Just to bring you back a little bit, back in February, the board made a determination to release 129 water units. There were 4 additional units that were relinquished that weren't yet assigned, so we merged those together to make 133. Since we began formally issuing notices of water availability in late March, since that time, 53 of the 133 have been hard assigned, meaning that property owners have entered into an agreement that's recorded on the property for the 53 units. 7 additional units have been claimed, but are not yet hard assigned. They could still become available if the property owners for those parcels do not pay for and enter into the payment plan agreement. They've got various deadlines to meet, which means there are still 73 units that are not yet assigned. We continued the process. I think today another batch of offer letters went out. And this week, we're going to notify sort of the whole next page of parcel of property owners only list that a formal offer may be coming, just again to prep them for that. I think we've gone through something like 700 requests up through now, 600 to 700. I mean, we've gone through a lot of requests, not individual requests, but of requests of units. So it's kind of a cumbersome process. That's where we stand. Fully expect that we're going to be at this for the remainder of, or for much of the remainder of the year, maybe beyond, just because of the various timelines that property owners have. So anyways, getting a lot of questions. Most property owners, have a number of questions before they decide to proceed. There are some that of course just say, that wasn't me who put my name on the list, take me off. That's real simple. But other people want to evaluate their options. Excuse me. I mentioned, I wanted to mention that board member English, going through some personal medical issues. He is back in town though. He's doing well. He feels well, and I'll keep you posted on his status as I learn more. And then let's see. Sometimes I struggle to read my own writing, especially. Oh, I'm sorry. I have it now. You'll recall that through this budget process, we added a position, a full-time position, a senior parks maintenance worker position. We started that recruitment process. I wanted to let you know we've had to extend that in order to continue to seek additional applicants. Getting qualified applicants remains a very significant challenge for the district in a number of areas, every area. So we've had to extend that recruitment. Those are all the items that I noted to bring to your attention today.
So I have a question, from the, water units. Are you finding that the wait list is reducing in size, with the fact that for the last 3 years, we've been, for the first time in many, many years, releasing water units? Are you seeing it go down,
Oh, so,
or are you seeing
no.
people being added to it?
So, I can just after looking at it today. So this is the 4th year in a row released water units, 21, 22, 23, now 24. That first several years, while units were released and were taken, the parties at the top of the wait list were looking for a number of units. And so while we were able to reduce the number of units requested, the number of parcels on the wait list didn't really go down. This year, we've made significant inroads. We've eliminated at least 50 parcels, 60. Yeah, 50, 60 parcels. So, and I believe since the wait list, since we've started this process, 3 have added back on. That's it. Don't hold me to it, might be 4, but 3 or 4 parcels have added back on after knocking out like 60 so far. And I'm very confident we're gonna make it quite a bit further. You know, we don't know for sure, but we're gonna, this is gonna keep going for some time. So, yeah, I think the wait list is gonna be a far less intimidating item for folks at the conclusion of this process, this year's process, than it had been in many years, decades, really. So, that's not to say there won't be a wait list. I don't think we're gonna be able to eliminate it, but I don't know. You know, it's gonna be half the size or less than it was at the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for general manager? How about from the public? Any questions for general manager? Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Make sure that you were done with your report. So you're done. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Committee reports. We have the tag report from July 18th. Any questions on that? Nope. Questions? No, okay. No public questions. Okay. And then director's report and or comments, any events or anything you guys like to share that you were involved with on behalf of the district? No, everything else in your report? Nothing, okay, nothing to report, okay. That's it, we are done, meeting adjourned, thank you guys.
Bye, Wayne.
Yeah.